Welcome. Feels like it's been quite a long-term birth process to actually get here this morning, but very pleased that I can follow through, and here we are in this space. So great. And what I'm going to do this morning, I'm just going to introduce a bit of the framework or the sort of the bigger intention behind the practice to begin with, before we start to do a few exercises to warm us up or get used to working together as a whole group. So this morning we'll be going through a series of exercises to work either just on our own or in pairs to begin the process of addressing really the key area of this work, which I've just done this little diagram here. So in our experience, most of the time we have a sense of our kind of inner life, and then there's all this other stuff. And each of us have that same experience, that we have this kind of internal experience and then the world. What I'm interested in, and what I think this practice starts to open up into, is, between us there is what's described as a relational field. That between us we create a third, we create something larger, more open than this individual sense of ourselves. And by opening into that relational field, we then get a stronger sense of what it is that creates this sense of self, this identity, and out of that begin to see the parts of us that are somehow binding us out of relationship, and the parts of us that allow us to free us into to work spontaneously, intuitively in this relational field. So this is the kind of the territory that we'll begin looking at this weekend. So what I'm hoping in a way is that this weekend will connect us to a common desire that I think is in each human being in a way. That there is something in us that wants to live, something else that wants to flow through us, that wants to enter into life. My experience is that when that does arise, when something does flow, there's a real sense of freshness, aliveness in that moment, in that experience. But we can't force that experience into being. It's a very fresh, very unique moment, and it's fleeting. It's not something that's kind of grip hold of. So in a way, the practice that we're working with, the practice that I'm trying to introduce, is rather the term from a Buddhist text that I really like. It's inconceivable. This is from the Vimuktadesha. This actual. What we're really aiming for is actually something which is completely non-conceptual. It's a sort of direct. You can taste it, but you can't really talk about it. So it's a somewhat tricky area to negotiate. But I think the way that some of us maybe have a feel for it is, I think that we know this kind of sense of longing. There's something that kind of draws us into our life in some way. So it's actually kind of tuning in, if you like, to that longing, owning up that we do have this longing. And I think that's something to be kind of honoured, really, because that's actually what draws us out of our habitual ways of doing things, our tendencies to sort of get a bit locked and stayed in ourselves. There's always something that's sort of drawing us forward into our life. And this is completely in alignment with the Dharma, with the teachings of Buddhism. This is not some kind of practice outside of the Dharma. So one of the things that we're talking about, the 10 fetters. So the fetters are these things that bind, that kind of lock us into a particular relationship to life. And it it's said that by breaking these fetters, then we will be in a state of enlightenment. Now, personally, I don't find imagery of breaking something particularly useful, but certainly that sense of having this sort of kind of closed view of oneself, and that through practice beginning to soften, beginning to become more fluid in that state of being. I think that's a very useful kind of model for practice, for kind of giving the picture of, in a way, what I'm trying to offer this weekend. What I'm offering you is the opportunity to begin to find those points of binding, those points of where we grip, but also those points of real freshness, fresh aliveness, and just noticing that, becoming interested in those, in that territory, really. So it's really the territory of noticing our self-views, and the way that we can do that, or the reason that we're doing this is in a group, is that, as I say, we're working with this the relational field. So in meditation, well, we kind of, there we are on our own, trying to come into relationship with experience. Whereas if I'm with you, it tends to sharpen up my awareness. And what's great is when I get distracted and overwhelmed and disturbed, then there's all these other psyches in the circle that are there in awareness, some of the time as well. So between us, we're kind of working to maintain a kind of a flow of awareness between us. So it does make it easier so that we can fade out, we can do whatever we do as a way of protection, or, well, simply out of habit, but then we do then have this kind of resource that we can lean back into as a way of supporting us to become more awake to our habitual ways of being. So this is why I think working in a group is so useful, is that it's actually very supportive conditions for really exploring our experience. I don't know why. I feel driven just to say a bit about this practice in relation to this first fetter of that we're working with, which is our view, our fixed self-views, is that what I don't think this group is about is moving towards an experience which is this experience of no self. I don't think that's a particularly useful term. All my experience suggests that there is something, there is a node of attention, a node of awareness, which provisionally, I'm identifying as me in this moment. So I think I think we do have an experience of selfhood, but it's to the extent that we are fluid and provisional in that experience that's important. If we're kind of trying to lock onto a particular type of experience, then I think we're caught. We've had it in a way in terms of being with reality. But reality wants to manifest, is manifesting continuously through us, through this body, through our responsiveness. So something is there flowing and moving, and that's what I'm interested in. It is an actual experience that comes through these bodies, these psyches. So I'm really interested in what is actually happening, what is actually in our experience, and noting that is something which is really alive and fleeting in that moment. And that is where reality is. Reality is in these moments, in this moment. And all we're trying to do is just dissolve the restrictiveness that we have around us to engage, to share in that experience. So what the practice is really kind of working on that edge, really, noticing, where am I gripping? What's happening to me now? And that is the practice, really, and that is where freedom lies, in that kind of direct experience. Okay, so just to end, really. So this weekend is very much about engaging with each other out of experience. So just to end, just say, when we're sort of talking, when we're working with each other, what we're really trying to do is to talk out of experience rather than talking about experience over there or over there. It is trying to meet so that we're actually coming out of here rather than out of here, or this little place over here somewhere. This kind of somewhere other. So the more that we are in touch with what's actually in our experience moment to moment, then we actually have a basis to come into relationship. And that's where I'm trying to encourage us to meet, really, from here, from the kind of the actual arising experience. Okay, that's enough words, or those sort of words anyway, so I'll stop there. But I thought it was important just to give you a bit of information to begin with. So is there any reflections, any questions, responses out of that little bit of information I've just put out? So I'm just going to turn off the recorder.